Hello, America. Welcome to the Junto Podcast, where we promote the practical applications of critical thinking and bold creativity. I'm your host, Edgar Mills. Thank you for joining us. Hello, America. Welcome back to episode 60. First thing I want to do is start off with a little disclaimer. So, in episode 59, I was talking about DUI and that kind of thing. And I'm fully aware, after listening to the audio on that I sounded like I myself was drunk. I can assure you I wasn't. Two things were going on. One, I was sick, which I'm still kind of sick. And two, I had my voice coming through the earphones that I don't normally do that. So there was and then there was a slight delay from me speaking and then so I was kind of slowing down to hear my own self speak. And the result was that it sounded like I was talking very slow. I already talk kind of slow, but that was even more exaggerated. So yeah, I was like, holy cow, I sound like I'm drunk. Well, I decided to roll with it. I didn't want to re-record, and hey, there it is. Anyway, here we are, episode 60. I think that might be a bit of a milestone. I don't know. Nah, it's not really a milestone, but I feel like we're doing pretty well. I heard a statistic that most podcasts don't make it past 8 episodes. That's kind of weird, but so I guess we're doing all right. I'm recording. You guys are listening to this about 6 or 7 days after I record. I'm recording on the Sunday of Memorial Day weekend. And so I feel compelled to talk about Memorial Day. And what I want to do is much like I talked about separating art from the artists and us looking at the individuals we disagree with politically or philosophically, but can we still appreciate the art, right? Well, today, this being Memorial Day weekend, I'm giving to think about all my friends that have passed, all the heroes that have fallen in combat and other things. But I think about the state of patriotism as it is today, and I think that it's taken a bit of a hit, patriotism, because I don't think people are really separating the soldiers and the airmen and Marines and all those people who sacrifice and join the military. I don't think they're able to separate that from the politicians that direct these people. So anyway, we're going to talk about that. And clearly Memorial Day, it's a big weekend, but it's not just about the flags and the barbecues and all. Those things are fun. Most of the time, swimming pools all open on Memorial Day weekend. It's all fun. But if we're patriots, or we real patriotism anyway, that allows us to appreciate and honor the sacrifice of the soldiers while still being able to criticize the government, right? Yeah, the military is a tool of the politician. That's right. And these politicians sometimes will send soldiers in harm's way without what doesn't seem to be much deep thought at all. But I think we need to learn to separate the soldiers from the government. I think that's what we need to do. We can love the country. I love America. And we can respect the uniform, which I do. I respect the uniform. Clearly, I wore it for 25 years. Of course, I respect it. And still call out dumbass, reckless, and, even criminal policy that comes out of the halls of Congress and executive branch. And that's patriotism, if you ask me. But understand, like, the 17-year-old kid that raised his hand and swore the oath, he didn't vote for war. He didn't have a hand in the war, right? He was a decision maker. He didn't have any input into the rules of engagement. Nobody asked him, what do you think? He didn't sign any shady ass contracts with Palantir or Lockheed Martin. That wasn't him. He showed up and did what his country asked him to do. That's what that kid did. And that is why that boils it down. You know, the 17-year-old kid that signed with mom and dad's signature to join the army because he was so dedicated to either the image of being a soldier or just a genuine desire to do something, a part of something greater than him, you know, that kind of thing. That's why we got to separate the government from the soldier in our minds, right? When we think about how bad we hate Trump or Obama, we got to think, yeah, but this kid right here, yeah, is he a pawn? You can call him a pawn. Is he just a tool of oppression? You can call him that all you want, but you don't know this kid, right? If you're a patriot, you you can salute the courage of the kid going into the great unknown without saluting the goddamn gaggle of congressmen that, or even the unilateral decisions of a president that sent that kid into war. You can be, and I think it's a requisite that to be a patriot, you have to be vocal against the sitting regime, whatever regime it is, red or blue. That's part of what it means to be an American, is to be able to criticize your so-called country leaders. You can do that and still thank the individual service member for their sacrifice and not the greasy gaggle of bureaucrat suits who flippantly order, you know, people to whatever country to do whatever thing, to import democracy or whatever. The hyperpartisanship in our current society and exacerbated by social media and all, every single issue today gets put into some extreme bipolar political sort of friggin' underground cage match on social media. You can't, you know, you post up, God bless our troops. Somebody is going to come in and comment that they're baby killers or some shit like that, or out there executing genocide. Yeah. And it's unnecessary, folks. It's unnecessary. It doesn't prove any point. It doesn't reinforce any point. Yeah, man. Social media. It's always left versus right, blue versus red. It's always, and so the way they do that is you're put in these categories. You either worship the military and you're a right-wing warmonger, or you hate the military and you're a left-wing blue-hair zealot. And that's garbage, man. That assumes that nobody has the capacity for nuance, critical thinking. That assumes that everybody is just these caricatures. And I hate that. I hate that so bad, especially when it comes to the men and women, the troops, and I mean the ground level, tactical level troops. And it's dangerous. It just foments violence and whatnot anyway. But both groups, right and left, imagine that they are what America is supposed to be. So any disagreement, what would be normally seen as nuance and just a reasonable disagreement, they turn that into some kind of treasonous act and treason to be punished by death. You know, and it overshadows honest and legitimate concerns or disagreement. And like I said, it incites violence in some cases. We've seen over the past, it has. All this red versus blue stuff. And it stops us from having like very rational grown-up conversations about when force is justified and when it isn't when it comes to going to war or doing a military action. Now, social media didn't create the division, folks. It just pours gas on it. It just pours just gallons of gasoline onto an issue and then hands everybody a box of matches. That's all social media does. Yeah. But look, Americans, we're better than that. Just because there's a vocal minority, that doesn't mean anything. We're better than that as Americans, and I know we are. We just need to start acting like it. or vocalizing it. Excuse me. Now look, there's been a whole bunch of questionable wars. There's been a whole bunch of questionable wars and a whole bunch of questionable military actions. Sorry. Trying to get a little bit of video of this stuff too. History gives us plenty of examples of the questionable wars and the flawed decision making when in retrospect, right? We get sold a bill of goods based on sort of shaky intelligence, wars that get dragged on for unknown reasons with no clear objectives, and things that have nothing to do with actually defending our own borders. So obviously, what's the big one? Well, I don't want to say for my generation, but in 1964 in Vietnam, the Gulf of Tonkin incident, well, it got exaggerated purposely in order to launch us full scale into the Vietnam War. And Americans died in a war that we ultimately lost. If you're looking at it in terms of win or lose, I mean, we did not win the Vietnam War. And that's not to take away from any of the great human beings that participated. And I will direct you guys, everybody listening to this, there's a MacV SOG podcast out there. It might be called the SOGcast, but there's still some old boys who were part of SOG doing just absolutely bizarre things, heroic things. And the stories are just unreal, man. So that created a generation of heroes for sure, even though the war was largely looked at unfavorable. And yeah, the communists won. Iraq in 2003, we were told without question, without doubt, there were weapons of mass destruction ready to rain down death upon the world. Some people say there weren't any. Now, I disagree with that. I happen to disagree with that. I think the numbers may have been exaggerated. I think the information was exaggerated in order to get us into the war with Iraq. But yeah, I don't think there were no weapons of mass destruction. Whatever. And Americans died chasing a threat that was not as advertised. Then, of course, there was Afghanistan in 2001. That war dragged on for 20 years. I was a part of that. Yeah. I went to Afghanistan on multiple rotations. And what started out as noble intentions, and I think a just mission, it morphed into nation building pretty quick. Nation building, by the way, that would never and could never stick. It can't. It won't stick. The Afghans don't want American democracy. No, they don't want American democracy. And I think we were just regenerating bad guys at some point. And these weren't, yes, these were policy failures, but they weren't just, that's not all this was. This wasn't just abstract policy failure. Americans died in Afghanistan in the pursuit of what? Allegedly strategic goals that, well, in my experience, they kind of changed every 6 months. I'm not excited about that. Am I anti-American for calling that out? I don't think so. Do I appreciate all my brothers and sisters that fought in that war? I do. The sacrifice, leaving your, how many birthdays and Christmases and et cetera, that you missed in order to do that. So let's think about, I mean, I want you to try to put a face to some of these, right? Like, never mind the orders and the big strategic failures. Those political games, yeah, the soldiers and airmen and Marines and everybody, they're pawns for sure. I mean, that's just it. But imagine this fresh-faced 19-year-old kid from Ohio who got pumped up by his recruiter. He believed in America. He believed in his country. Maybe even had a blind belief that the politicians were honorable. And then, one day he steps onto a helicopter that gets shot down by RPG. Lives lost. Or a 21-year-old Marine from East LA, maybe a first generation American citizen who, in a gunfight, ran toward the gunfight in the open in order to drag his homie to cover. In the back of his mind, suspecting that he's only there for political theater, and he gets smoked trying to save his homie. Or maybe another soldier who, a lot of you may not know this, but there's a significant number of Native Americans in the military. There is a strong tradition of Native American service in the military. So maybe a young Native American's in, as a family tradition, a warrior tradition, and he gets killed by IED, after, let's say 2012 or whatever. Most Americans already tuned out, stopped watching. Nobody cared about it anymore. It's just a political, hot potato. None of these young people that I just described were warmongers or profiteers. They were young American men and women who stood up when the rest just, kept clicking on their the manufactured outrage, you know what I mean? I don't think it's patriotic putting young Americans through a meat grinder. That's not what I'm saying, but there is a nobility in serving your country to a degree, especially something as thankless. Now, I say thankless. A lot of people will thank you for your service, but while you're in the military, your leadership is thankless. They don't care. You're a number to most of them. Now, again, look, that's a blanket statement. There's a lot of quality leaders. There's also a lot of shitty leaders. It's a thankless job. And how I know the leadership don't care as much as they should, because when they have you standing around and waiting for no apparent reason, oh, you just don't understand the reason. Bullshit. Learn how to manage time better. Get your people where they need to be when they need to be there, not 2 hours prior, just to give you a comfort zone. All right. I almost got off on a tangent. All right. And look, the military doesn't breed some like separate warrior class to that were born and bred to be shipped off to be gladiators in war. They weren't born in isolation and then trained in a like a closed compound until they reached the age of 18, and then they kill a wolf by hand and then boom, go off to the military. That's not it. And I'm talking about from conventional Army private, Air Force private, Navy private, whatever, all the way up to the coolest of cool special operations ninja. It's a cross section of all of us, of America. White, black, Hispanic, Latino, Asian, Native, every possible mix of faith, Protestant, Catholic, Jew, Muslim, Mormon, Wiccan, even atheists. Everybody. It's everything in between. And guess what? They put the same uniform on, and it says right on the uniform, U.S. Army, Air Force, Navy, Marines, Coast Guard, all the works, Space Force. And they're the same. And guess what? Here's what I know for a fact. They bleed the same. It's red every time. Yep. They bleed red every time. So your understanding of that and how you treat these service members when they're alive, or even how you talk about them when they're dead, kind of informs on how you treat your other people just out and about, your average people out in public. If you shit on service members, living or past, then you probably shit on your average citizen out, and you're probably a bit of an asshole. Probably. And why? What are some of the reasons that young people in America join the Army? I know I'm surprised that sometimes there's some like lefties. There's a lot of lefties in the military, and you most of the time don't put those two together. But generally speaking, though, why do people join? Why do you think? Do you think they go, oh, you know what? I want to be a cog in the evil machine. I want to bring war unjustly to smaller nations. Nah, I don't think that's it. They sign up for a multitude of reasons, folks. A lot of times it's to carry on a family legacy. My uncle Jimmy was a Green Beret in 5th Special Forces Group in the Vietnam War. He was on a mobile guerrilla force, and he was featured. His death, in fact, was featured in the book Blackjack 33, written by Jim Donahue. So that was part of the reason I did. My dad was an infantryman in the 70s, and he just so happened not to go to Vietnam. It was his unit just didn't deploy. He was in, I want to say, the old Ironsides. Is that right? First or second Armored Division. He drove a M113. That's what my dad did. So there's a little bit of that. Some kids join out of pure patriotism. They're just brought up in a very patriotic home. Red, white, and blue, America. Yeah, and they love it. And they want to protect what they love, man. That's just seen as a duty. Like, okay, I'm join the Army. There's a significant number out there that join for college money. It's a good deal. And if you are playing your life out and you want to go do 4 years in the Army and get, $40,000-$50,000 of college money when you get out, great. There's nothing wrong with it. Now, you might have to understand that sometimes during that 4 years, you may be called upon to do some unsavory shit. But that's you sign the contract. That's what you do. A lot of officer types join to get their college debt, paid for. What about young married couple, 23 years old, you got some kids and you ain't got no health insurance? Well, the military has pretty decent benefits in active duty and even retiring, you know what I mean? So that's a reason. Now I fit a couple of these bills here when I joined, but some people crave structure and need some discipline in their life. I definitely needed that. Yeah, I definitely needed that. My Aunt Betty, who was the wife of my Uncle Jimmy, who was the Green Beret, she said the military will either make you or break you, and I don't think she was wrong about that. So, and then for a lot of people out there, man, it's just a stable job. Depending on the economy, look, you ain't going to get rich as a soldier, but it's a job, and you got a place to live, and you got food to eat, and you get a paycheck, and yeah, it's a steady job, stable job. There's clear expectations. Show up on time, be on time. That's it. Yeah, and some people, again, just admire that there's something bigger than themselves that they're a part of, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's not, maybe in the 70s and 80s it may have gotten sort of this being the last resort sort of thing. You join the Army or go to jail. It's a place where they send rejects and criminals. No. That is not the case anymore. Now, even when recruiting is tough, right? Even when the numbers are low and recruiters are getting hammered, there's still the standards to join the military. The vast majority of Americans cannot qualify to join the military. That's it, for whatever it is. The military has a lot of waivers for a lot of things, but then there's a lot that they do not. You got to get a certain ASVAB score. Now, you don't have to be a genius, but there's got to be a level of physical fitness. And increasingly these days, I think people are more unfit than past decades. Background checks, man. Like, sometimes they'll let people in with certain offenses and sometimes not. It depends. But right now, so I looked at a statistic, only 23% of humans in America right now would qualify to join the Army without any waivers. Yeah, that's pretty low. Yeah. And what are some of the factors? Well, here's the number one cited factor: obesity. And they wrote this in a very diplomatic way. Educational deficits. What does that mean? Yeah. Well, there's kids graduating high school who can't read here in Georgia, at least. So you can see where that educational deficit might be. And then criminal records and drug abuse records. Yep. Think on that stuff for a minute. 23% of Americans right now would qualify to join the military. Everybody's worried about draft because of Iran and all that shit. 23% of Americans qualify. So what are they going to do with the rest? What are they going to do with the other 77%? Make them laundry specialists or something? You only need so many laundry specialists. All right. So make every attempt. This is my plea to you a little bit. Make every attempt to not to project your political hatred onto the soldier, onto the American soldier, especially the dead American soldiers. If you love Trump or hate Trump, or you loved Obama or hate Obama, don't project your hatred onto an 18-year-old kid who just shipped out to basic training, or even onto an old salty old retired master sergeant. Don't harbor ill will for the soldier, sailor, airman, marine, coastie, or even your space farce guardian. That's a thing now. Guardians, there are. Hey, good on them. They might be fighting war on Mars one day. Don't project your vitriol onto them because you despise the administration, whatever the administration is. None of these people started any war. None of these people said, yeah, I think we should go do horrific war crimes in some nation undeclared. You know what I mean? They did what they thought was right. They answered to the call that so many others could not or would not. They answered the call that so many others could not or would not. So in the course of our history and in the course of the wars that we fought, 1.3 million Americans have given the last full measure of devotion. 1.3 million Americans have died during our various wars. They didn't die for politics. That wasn't the last thing like, oh, I hope Obama is proud. No. They didn't die for some think tank fucking national defense strategy policy paper. But it's as true now as it ever has been. And I know it sounds cliche, but they die for the person next to them on the left and right. That's a fact. Because never mind strategy at friggin' cosmic levels, never mind operational level, tactical level, ground level, in the moment, the thing that matters is that you can help your homie and your homie can help you not die. And that's a powerful thing, by the way. And yeah, they may have died for a measure of loyalty to the flag that they wear on their shoulder because they have some kind of dedication to, well, albeit imperfect and albeit flawed, they may have some measure of dedication to the American experiment that's still going 250 years later. So by the time you're listening to this, Memorial Day will have passed. The beer will have flowed. The steaks and burgers will have been delicious. But I encourage you, even after the fact, a lot of guys will, especially former service members, you will take some time to reflect. And you will take some time to remember the fallen. And it may affect some of you in a profound way. Kind of affects me in a profound way at times. But if you're one of these people out there who are, your whole personality is built around political activism, and you utter the words that they deserved it, that they deserve to die, re-examine yourself. Re-examine yourself. Rethink that statement. And then go out and seek some clarity on the difference between policy written up in the halls of friggin' the Death Star and the people who are on the ground scratching out a living, whether it's in the service of the military or what. If you ever uttered the words, "they deserve to die," you need to re-examine yourself, and you're welcome to email me to discuss it. Honor the fallen, good people. Whatever you think about it, it was an honorable act. And yeah, thank the soldiers who are still walking the streets. Thank them. They still live pretty miserable lives. And if you are one of those activists, though, yeah, look, do keep fighting to ensure that the next generation doesn't get sent off to unjust, illegal wars, for sure. That they get sent to wars that truly affect American, sovereignty and safety, for sure, and that are just. There is such a thing as just war. It exists. And that, folks, is, in my opinion, how you do patriotism. Yeah, support the ground level, fighters, right? The ground level, the every little pawn on the chessboard. Support them, love them, because they don't get much of it. And then when, let's say, Private Jared Dennis, who gets smoked in an ambush, and later goes back to get his body recovered, and he's got a hand grenade clenched in his hand as a final act of defiance. Give that guy props, man. Because in that moment, he was the biggest hero on the planet, right? Whether you believe it or not. How much guts did it take for him to go through that thought process as he was shot and bleeding out to grab a grenade and hold on to that thing until a Taliban come and flipped him over. That's real stuff, man. So show just a little bit of deference, a little bit of respect, I guess, or a little bit of compassion, even if it's no respect. Show a little bit of compassion to those that have gone and gave it all in the name of the American way, whatever way that happens to be in this current generation. It's a thankless job by and large, and it's only semi-glorious. There's times when it's glorious, but it's not glorious when one of your mates dies on the battlefield. In your mind, it might make a great movie, but it's not glorious. Okay, good people. I didn't mean to go dark on that. In summary, I just want to, again, I want to compare it to a previous episode where separate the soldier from the policy and the administration. Because the soldier may be doing a noble thing. In his mind, anyway, he's paying homage. I paid homage to my uncle who, yeah, he did 3 tours in Vietnam. He did 2 tours, got out, went back in to rejoin the same team because, they're going back. I can't. Do you know what I mean? He felt compelled to go back a 3rd time in Vietnam, and those were like year-long deployments. Yeah, man. So the soldier that dies in combat, I don't care if he's the 17-year-old kid or the 43-year-old sergeant major, he's doing a selfless thing. Yeah. Not many people are in the military who have a truly selfish personality or trait in them. Most people in the military are selfless, and they're doing what they think is right and noble until the end. So let that soak in. Please do. Please let that soak in. All right. This has been the episode, folks. I didn't have, it's not long and drawn out. Didn't have a lot of statistics. I just I want to share with you that because it happens to be Memorial Day weekend and it's what I'm thinking about. So again, this will air next in 1 week from now. Until then, yep, the OSS challenge is not very full. There's plenty of seats for that. Please sign up for the OSS challenge. Bring a buddy. Bring 2 buddies. Bring 3 buddies. It's going to be a good one. It's going to be physical. It's going to be challenging. It's probably going to be hot as hell. And Special Forces Foundation rep is going to be out there, who happens to also be my best friend, Timmy. And it's sponsored by Athena Target Solutions, our friend Mike Pearson. So come on out and support. Please do. And then we have a lot of other things in June. We still have a couple of seats for the Armed Force on Force, the Armed Self-Defense course on June 20th. We have a venue for that now. We have already volunteers who are going to be bad guys and whatnot. So it's full blown. It's ready to go. That's still up. So everything that's up on the website is it's ready to go. There's spots. If it's up on the website, there's spots for it. Let's see. twoteamguys.com. Check it out. We do great things there. And then givesendgo.com /help a homie fund. Help us help other people who need help. Yeah. If I had to do math, like if I were a business right now with Help a Homie, a nonprofit, I would be in the red significantly. I try to help people who small scale, because that's what I am, is small scale. I try to help people who need food, water, diapers, pair of shoes, things like that. They need help with to get the brakes fixed on the car. The bicycle is just busted beyond repair. So maybe grab a used bike. Things like that, folks. Things like that. So I think it's a good thing. I do. And I hope to grow that into a proper nonprofit, a bigger organization, to where we possibly have, where we can start sort of storing material to be able to go out and give out on a regular basis, as opposed to me driving down the road and, hey bro, do you need some food? So anyway, help out with that. Please do. givesendgo.com /help a homie fund. Again, I think you'll be blessed if you do that. It's not forced charity, right? All things voluntary. That's the way I look at it. All things voluntary. Other than that, folks, please reach out to me, Edgar Mills at OspreyShootingSolutions.com. I would love to hear from you. Suggestions for podcasts, suggestions for training, questions about training, guest suggestions, or if you want to be a guest. If you got something compelling to say or something that you think's important, yeah, we'll get on here and do it. So do reach out, because I do love to get your feedback. All right, good people. That's it. I appreciate you guys. I love you guys. And yeah, happy Memorial Day past, and take care of each other.